So, the topic that I chose to research was the effects of a bipolar parent on childhood development, along with these sort of outcomes and effects that can result from this sort of upbringing. Because unfortunately, there are a large number of negative outcomes, such as a high risk of developing bipolar disorder themselves. And this is largely due to the hereditary connection, but there's also their vulnerability to developing other mental disorders such as depression, ADHD, mania, and PTSD. And these can all lead to more problems and effects later on in the child's life. And this primarily has to do with the risky behaviors that the child is prone to commit due to this upbringing and characteristics that they obtained from their bipolar parent. And from there, the child could be faced with a downward spiral of negative behaviors that result from their childhood upbringing, such as drug addiction. So, the causes for these negative factors that we see from having a parent with bipolar disorder involve the family environment, childhood experiences, and mental stressors, all sort of acting as a kind of like trigger for genetic predispositions for particular mental illnesses. And what this means is that these children are vulnerable to the development of a variety of mental illnesses from their childhood upbringing and their bipolar parent. So there are certain characteristics that these children may inherit or pick up from their childhood from their parent. And these characteristics involve a high motor activity, low frustration tolerance, and emotional sensitivity. And these can all influence susceptibility for mental illnesses later on in the child's life. And the developing and long-term consequences that we see from these common characteristics that are shared for children who have a bipolar parent is that these children are more prone to commit risky behaviors, especially during middle childhood, such as self-harm, smoking, and criminal acts. And this is all at a much greater risk than children from families without a mental illness background at all. And this is sort of something that begins the chances of substance abuse and even addiction later on in life. And there's even a connection between PTSD and substance abuse for children who have a bipolar parent, because substance abuse is found to be at a higher percentage for those who have PTSD characteristics. So the connecting point there is that the background of having a parent with bipolar disorder just already creates an increased risk for PTSD, which all leads to consequently the risk of substance abuse later on in life. So another factor that's important to consider is the attachment relationship between the child and their parent, which can all be altered by the parent having bipolar disorder. Research shows that these children had areas of weakness in regard to their attachment and social competence, seen especially in their relationships. And this is something that could be attributed to a lack of sharing emotions between the bipolar parent and their child, as well as the child's focus and heightened awareness of their parents' moods during childhood. And there's also an importance of security and stability that comes with parenting and child development, which is something that can be at risk with a mental illness such as bipolar disorder. So as a result of this, the chances of developing a mental disorder are far greater for these children who have a parent with bipolar disorder than the children of unaffected parents. So in conclusion, there are a great amount of factors and effects that can lead to consequences later on in the life of a child who has a parent with bipolar disorder, and this goes simply beyond inheriting the disorder themselves, as they're inherently vulnerable to other mental disorders and even addiction later on in life due to their upbringing.